All right, welcome back into the Penny Clinic Low T Bears Den. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Talking across Baylor athletics today. What's been going on? We had track, men's basketball with Jared Butler declaring for the NBA draft, and obviously the big talking point this week has been Baylor baseball. 64 teams make the field of 64, and Baylor number 65 left out of the tournament field as an understudy, the first alternate, and they will not be making the trip to the postseason as all 64 teams have been cleared to play. We're joined now by Kyle Mckelvey. Kyle, I want to thank you for coming on talking baseball today. A pleasure to have you and get to chat some of the ball and the diamond.
Thanks. Yeah, man. Sounds fun. We're really excited.
I tell you what, I mean, this has got to be one of the busiest times of the year for you guys at College Baseball Nation with, we were talking with another outlet locally, and they said, listen, we got, 4 or 5 different Texas schools that are playing right now, and just how do you keep up with that? I mean, how do you follow that many regionals across the country? For you at College Baseball Nation, really, where does the coverage start?
I mean, we just watch a ton of college baseball. We have, like, Twitter and Instagram. We have a few writers that we send out to wherever they can. Then we have a guy who's in Austin. He does stuff there. We have our other guy, John, is in California. So he's going to go out to the Stanford Regional this weekend. And I'm in Houston, so I might be able to make it up to the TCU Regional, but we'll see. It's a little bit of a drive. But, yeah, I mean, just no sleep in general. Like, I had like 6 hours of sleep last night, stayed up till 1 o'clock. I know that sounds a lot, but stayed up pretty late just prepping for this whole crazy week.
Well, Kyle, I know that it starts crazy, as we saw with basketball especially, and then it starts to maybe even out a little bit. But baseball, I know from experience, is even wilder than basketball for the sheer amount of teams. Well, the amount of teams is the same. So many games going on at once, the double elimination format, the regional format. For you, though, at College Baseball Nation, kind of walk us through. I want to be able to give plug to your site, to your Twitter, your Instagram, social media. What's been going on for you guys, and really, how did this whole thing get started?
Yeah, so we have Twitter and Instagram at collegeballnat. Our website is collegebaseball.info. We have a podcast, the College Baseball Nation podcast, anywhere you can find your podcasts. And this all started back in 2019. My friend John, he's the main guy for this site. He started it he saw that there was a lack of college baseball coverage just in general. There's like the big guys, D1 baseball and all them. But there's not a lot of like smaller focus, like we are. We're national focused, but we really get into the weeds of all that stuff. And so he brought me on shortly after that, and yeah, it's been great ever since. We got to go to the College World Series that year in 2019 as credentialed media, and so we got to sit in the press box and go to the press conferences and everything. It was really cool, a really great experience.
Well, Kyle, moving into this season, COVID takes away last year's postseason. Now you move into a year where things have been I want to say different, but it feels like baseball is going back to normal. I got to go up to Baum Walker Stadium for a weekend series against Florida, and it felt like baseball just is back. Sports in general are back. Moving into the regional, do you feel like sports have returned and baseball is at the forefront of that?
Yeah, it's really cool that college baseball gets to be one of the first sports that is kind of up to 100% capacity. You got to see it. I don't know if it was 100% when you got to see it, but it was Baum Walker is always loaded. So it's really, really cool to see. Like the states of Texas and Mississippi were one of the first to open up. So yeah, like locally A&M and Houston and Texas have all been opening up to full capacity. It's been really cool to see.
Kyle, with that, moving into this postseason across the Big 12, one of the major talking points for us here has been Baylor at that 65 spot. The question of why Michigan, why UC Santa Barbara, these teams that are 50 or lower on the RPI, Michigan at 89 RPI, only 3 games that they played, not one, played in the Quad 1. When you see a couple of these bubble teams that snuck in, Michigan, UCSB individually, maybe Alabama as well, why did these teams get in?
Yeah, so first off, for the Big Ten, they didn't play any non-conference games. So RPI is just, you can just throw it out for the Big Ten. Same for the ACC, kind of is more meaningless. The Big West played a few conference games, so that's where UCSB is. Baylor, like they have a pretty good RPI, it's 44 in the RPI, but they just, I think part of it was that they just went 0-2 in the conference tournament and they ended losing 2 series in a row. I thought if they had won the Oklahoma series at home to end the regular season, so they would be 500 at that point. It might have helped them propel them into the tournament, because then they would have faced a different opponent in the tournament, and then they they would have avoided Texas Tech and a hot Kansas State at the moment. So yeah, Baylor could have made it in if they just won a game, maybe two, in the Big 12 tournament. They also just didn't really have any of the other metrics. Like they have a really good series win, that road series win at Texas Tech, but got swept at TCU, lost 2 out of 3 to Texas, lost 2 out of 3 against West Virginia, which you're supposed to do. But yeah, they just, if they had won that Oklahoma series, I think they probably would have been in. But it's really hard to tell.
Cal, does it surprise you at all, the RPI number 2 conference in the nation in the Big 12 with 3 top 8 seeds and an Oklahoma State who made it in as now a top 25 team by most outlets' consideration? Does it surprise you that the Big 12 only got 4 teams in from a conference that has so much talent at the top?
Yeah, I think you said it right there. It's all the talent is at the top. So like TCU and Texas, and to a lesser extent, Texas Tech kind of beat up on the lower teams. But TCU and Texas are really driving the RPI up for the Big 12. Baylor, I don't know, they got 4 teams in out of 9 baseball playing teams in the Big 12. So it's just under half, which is probably lower than you'd expect. So yeah, I guess it's a little surprising, but I think the committee, I don't know. The committee they did okay this year. Putting Michigan in the field, it's fine. Like they probably are doing that based off of 2019's run to the championship final, and they still have some talent left over from that team, so they put them in there, and then they put UCSB in because having a one bid league in the Big West where they are is probably just it's I don't know. It was like a regionality thing, I guess.
Kyle, with that, when you assess what the committee has done with this year's field of 64, I know Pitt has been a big conversation. They won 17 Quad 1 games in the ACC. I was actually very surprised that they were snubbed over North Carolina when you look at the full body of work. When you think about the teams that didn't make it in that you were really surprised about, is Pitt one of those, and are there other teams where you thought, wow, so-and-so got really snubbed?
Yeah, so I agree with that. Pitt probably should have been in, but we actually had Pitt projected out in our last regional projection before the committee came out with theirs. I think it was more of just a gut feel at that point. We thought like Pitt had lost like 7 of the last 8 games or something crazy. They got swept in their last 2 ACC conference series. One of those was on the road to a really bad Wake Forest team. If they had, I don't know. They were really close. They were in that list of 20 potential hosts, though. So I think it was not a good look for the committee who put them in that list of 20, and then they kind of crapped the bed there. Pitt did.
Yeah.
I probably would have had Pitt over UNC. I think we had UNC out, but Pitt had we had UNC in, but Pitt won 2 out of 3 against North Carolina, like just before that COVID pause that they had. So it's interesting. It's not a good look. Probably number 50 in the RPI though is I don't know. It's close. They're actually lower than Baylor in the RPI. So, man, who knows?
It obviously was a weird year. I know you mentioned how RPI, and they talked about that with the Commissioner Jeff about how RPI played into this selection, probably less so than most years, considering COVID and what it has done to a lot of these teams. Kyle, for you, when it comes to seeding, was there a team that you felt like was underseeded, somebody overseeded? How did the committee get it when it comes to that top 16?
Man, what an awkward interview to watch with that commissioner, right? Did you watch that?
Oh, did we? We had a whole segment on it yesterday. It said, Alabama, what do you think? And he said, schedule hard. And then that's it. That was his whole point.
Yeah. We talked about this on our podcast yesterday. There is a good explanation for Alabama to be in, but strength of schedule was not it. Whatever, it's fine.
How do you let them in on the bubble, and then you weren't ready for the question about the bubble team, and you don't know why you let Alabama in? That made no sense.
Yeah, it just sounds like he was ready for a different question, but whatever. So yeah, it's a team that we thought was a little underseeded. It was actually Wright State, who is the 4 seed in the Tennessee Regional. We thought they had a legitimate case to be a number 2 seed overall, and then probably more so a 3 seed. I think they just kind of ran out of spots for 3 seeds. So that Knoxville regional is going to be really tough with ACC champ Duke and Liberty, who's a really solid team, and then Wright State at the horizon. So yeah, that's one of the toughest regionals that we see compared to. I mean, also the Tucson Regional with Oklahoma State in there and UCSB, that bubble team. They're still a really good pitching staff, and we really like them as a team. And Grand Canyon was the WAC champ, and so yeah, that's a tough regional with Oklahoma State in there. I think Oklahoma State had a legitimate case to be a host. If they had won the Big 12 tournament, I think they probably would have been. But TCU took it and vaulted over Texas Tech in the host standings.
Kyle, with that, I look at Starkville right now, Stark Vegas. I just, when I think about Fayetteville and Starkville and the comparison between those two regionals, I see Nebraska, the Big Ten champion. A Power 5 conference champion has been sent to the number 1 overall seed to play. Granted, the Big Ten's not very good at baseball, but still, that seems like Nebraska got slighted there. And then I look at Starkville and think, yeah, VCU's won 21 straight against opponents that aren't, quad 1. But I just, when I compare those two, it seems like Mississippi State got a really easy regional, and Nebraska may have gotten snubbed a bit when you think about Nebraska winning the Big Ten.
Yeah, we actually have a piece up on our website right now where John ranked all 16 regionals in terms of how easy they are, and we have Stark Vegas as the second easiest, right behind Austin. And so 2 seed Austin, you want them to have a pretty easy regional, like they've kind of earned it at that point. We have Fayetteville as the number 8, like kind of right there in the middle. Like Nebraska is a pretty good team. Will Bolt is a really cool story there. He came from A&M and was a coach at Nebraska at one point. So it's really cool that he's got them going again. But yeah, Northeastern is also one of those teams that kind of like VCU, where they're played really well against like lesser competition. And I mean, I don't know, they won their conference tournament against some Southern teams. So that's a pretty cool story there. But yeah, I think Starkville is a pretty easy regional too, kind of like what you said about VCU. There were some Ole Miss fans that were pretty mad because the Oxford regional is one of the tougher regionals that we see, and then the Starkville regional is an easier regional. So it's kind of they can kind of see that, hey, there's conspiracy there against us.
Yeah. Kyle, I definitely saw Oxford-wise, in which those are 2 of the toughest places to play. I don't think either of those teams will have an issue getting out of the regionals. But I found it interesting that Mississippi State had such an easy road, like you said, in comparison to Ole Miss. Looking, though, across the way to the Big 12 with TCU, Texas, and Texas Tech, I guess considering we're Baylor guys, we were a little bit disappointed that Texas was seeded so highly. Didn't think that was maybe necessarily deserved, but those 3 teams in the top 8, what do you make of each of those, and who's got the best chance at making a run? Because I think Texas at 2, that may be a little bit too much love for the Longhorns from what I've seen.
Yeah, so yeah, I talked about this on our podcast yesterday. Texas, they got the 2 overall seed. We had them projected as the number 3 overall seed, but I think the difference there is that the committee really does not like putting teams from the same conference at 1 and 2 overall. So Tennessee and Vandy are 3 and 4. I think if Tennessee had won the conference tournament and not lost a game in the conference tournament and then just like went on a really good run to end the season, then I think that would have been enough to push them over Texas. But right now, it's like when you're comparing them, they're relatively similar teams. Texas and Tennessee are resume wise. And so since they don't like comparing or putting teams from the same conference in at 1 and 2, then that's just what propelled Texas over there, I guess. But Texas got one of the easier draws in the regional, so I think I like them to make it out of their regional. They have a really good offense that again in Arizona State in their regional, so they have a really good pitching staff to kind of limit that. So that'll be interesting. But I actually have Florida in that semifinal or that super regional draw going over Texas. Just I liked Florida's offense, and they're really talented. They're peaking at the right time. So I think Florida has the ability to beat Texas, and what a cool matchup there in the super regional. 2 name brand teams there, Florida and Texas.
Kyle, looking across it in Lubbock, just the fact that Texas Tech gets to be at home for a regional and now a super regional, how key is that for those guys?
Oh, that's huge. Yeah. So I think Baylor won the first series in Lubbock, like for like any team that going into Lubbock since 2018. Like that's a long time for Tech to have a home win streak there in series games, at least. So yeah, what a lucky draw for them. Like I think we had them at like number 9 or 10 overall in our last projection. We thought that their resume was good. Being 3 games back in the Big 12 standings was a little bit iffy, but I don't know. They made a little bit of a run in the conference tournament, and it seems like the committee really values conference tournament play because it's kind of set up to be similar to the regional play. But yeah, I think Tech has a really good chance to make it to Omaha. They get paired with the Stanford Regional there. And Stanford has a tough draw with UC Irvine there. So yeah, it'll be really fun to watch.
Well, Kyle, last question for you here. When it comes to the Big 12 and these teams that are representing the conference, who do you have the most confidence in to make a College World Series run out of these 3? I say 3. You got Oklahoma State too.
Yeah. I mean, so John actually picked Oklahoma State to make it to Omaha, so he's more confident in them, I guess. But yeah, I would say. I know I said already that I picked Texas to lose in that Super Regional round, but I think Texas has a really good chance because Florida might not be able to win their own regional, so Texas has a really good chance to make it to Omaha, and they have a super deep pitching staff. But TCU's offense is just electric. They have one of the hottest offenses in the country and a relatively deep and experienced pitching staff. So yeah, I would my money would be on TCU or Texas to make it to Omaha and maybe make a run. It's hard to pick against Arkansas to win the whole thing, but you can maybe win a few games here in Omaha. That's kind of my pick there.
Yeah, last 2 decades, the 1 seed has only won it 1 time, and so it just doesn't bode well. That's baseball. That's just how baseball goes. Maybe there's a Wright State, Coastal Carolina, somebody out in the doldrums of. I remember Kent State. The Golden Flashes making it in 2012. There's always one of those teams that just has 0 place, and then there they are. I think they won a game in Omaha that year too. So
2008 Fresno State won the whole thing as a 4 seed overall. That was crazy.
And I mean, just nuts stuff that happens in baseball. So who knows? I mean, anything like that could take place. But Kyle, we got a Bear Games question of the day today that we're giving all of our guests, callers, and everybody in the studio, and that is your favorite Baylor athlete of all time. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I don't know. Like Jason Jennings was an All-American in the 90s, and you got your Max Muncies in baseball. I'm not going to just make you pick a baseball guy, but any Baylor player you remember that sticks out to you?
If you're going to make me pick baseball, Nick Lofton was a really great batter in like a few years ago. I think he got drafted relatively recently, but he's an insane talent. It was really fun to watch. But I mean, it's hard to pick against RG3. It's really fun to watch him in college. Winning the Heisman that year, and he was just slinging it around the yard. It was great.
Gosh, Kyle with the Heisman winner cop out. I'll give it to you, but like that's just come on, man. But Nick Lofton, you may be the only one that says Nick Lofton today, though, so I'll give you some credit for that one. Hey, Kyle, I want to thank you for joining us today and talking some baseball across the country. Excited for this weekend and the tournament to kick off, and hopefully we can do it again too as these teams try to punch their ticket to Omaha.
Absolutely.
Sweet. Thanks again. That's Kyle Mckelvey joining the show today to talk a little bit of college baseball from College Baseball Nation. Again, Kyle Mckelvey. Check out College Baseball Nation on Twitter or Instagram. When we come back from this break, Morgan Huber joins the show from the Big 12 digital correspondent to talk a little bit more baseball, some Jared Butler basketball, and Oklahoma men's golf in the national championship. Drake Toll, Jack McKenzie, Marquise Cooley, Andrew Robertson, and Armstrong Sims. Don't go anywhere. This is Up Tempo.
It's all but over.